All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girl, singular. We're back with the final Grandmaster of the season. This is the end of the Grandmaster rotation, and we're dealing with Hypernet current as the final Grandmaster Nightfall in rotation in this absolutely charming season of the Wish. So here we go. I'll say it once and I'll say it again. Player Slants is the best weapon in the game for anybody and everybody. Casuals and hardcore, if you're doing end game Grandmaster content and you're not doing Player Slants, you are intentionally trying to not use the best option. And I almost commend that, if not for the fact that it's so painfully easy to use player slants. It just takes care of everything in the strike, especially since the majority of the Cabal enemies we're dealing with either have a solar shield or have a strand shield. And there's a couple arc shields and void shields a little bit down the line, but most of what you're dealing with is solar or is highly susceptible to solar, scorch, and ignition damage. I'm telling you, please, dear God, just use player slants and use it well. It is the best loadout for a reason. If you're not brain dead or you're not intentionally trying to lower your IQ and you want to use different loadouts, just remember we're dealing with overload and unstoppable champions here. So pand cannons, rocket launchers, using strand, using stasis to deal with all of that nonsense. If you're silly, you might want to run a little bit of arc jolt, but there's nothing good I can recommend that does arc jolt. This might be the only strike where I can say that Well of Radiance is going to be a handicap, because the DR you're getting from Well of Radiance is not going to be able to deal with the things such as the Tormentor, and you're not going to be able to deal with the blights and the bombs from the boss. This is a very mobile and active strike. You probably shouldn't be using Well of Radiance. Same thing goes with Bubble. You're better off just getting hyper offensive supers, things like Behemoth Titan if you're using Stasis, or if you're using Strand, going with the Blade Fury. I would personally recommend Strand Titans. If you're playing Warlock, you can never go wrong with Needle Storm, or if you want to use Arc, using Chaos Reach. Besides that, if you're a hunter, you're either using Solar Strand and just making the most out of your loadout. So besides that, besides the overload and unstoppable coverage, there's not really much more to consider, other than the only trouble enemy in this entire strike is just going to be that one Tormentor. So you're going to make sure that you have a weapon that does good precision damage, because rocket launchers and such aren't going to do a very good job at taking down the Tormentor. Just those are things to consider when build crafting, but really, go wild. If you have a build that you think works and you think is effective, just do it. Have fun. Besides that, in the background, you've seen on what it takes to get through the first area pre-Tormentor, and it is just sitting back, killing things at a distance. The AI isn't particularly smart. If it doesn't have a direct path to you, it isn't going to do a very job at getting to you when you're dealing with the initial bridge and the jumping over the gap and killing the gladiators and centurions that are across the cliffs. And when you're in the caves, you can either try to sit back, or you can go for one of the minotaurs, take their head, deal that little bit of extra damage, and get that increased super energy. Now, when you get to this part, when you're overlooking the taken blight, you're going to want to stay back for as long as you can and just clear out most of the enemies, because you don't get the joining allies first until your ally pulls you into the arena by jumping into the arena. So you're going to want to sit back for as long as you can and kill as much as you can, and try not to get sniped in the process. Once you deal with most of the Shadow Legion, there's going to be a couple drop pods and a Tormentor that spawns. You're going to want to try to take out the champion and the other Shadow Legion that spawn first. It's going to be a bit of a pain in the ass if you focus all your energy initially on the Tormentor. So just clearing out all the little ads before the big one, because this isn't a bad Grandmaster Nightfall like the Battlegrounds. This is a good Grandmaster Nightfall because it's a strike, and the enemies don't infinitely respond. So, to clarify, kill the little guys, then kill the Tormentor. The Tormentor has crit spots. I wouldn't waste any heavy ammo. I wouldn't commit any supers to the Tormentor until you've broken both of its shoulders, because the Tormentor has pretty high damage resistance to light-based abilities and to other damage that isn't hitting it on its crit spot. One piece of advice I have here is that a second wave of ads, a second wave of Shadow Legion, is going to spawn halfway through the battle with the Tormentor, around when you get him to half health, so you're going to want to make sure to kill that. A second champion spawns. You can save your crowd control supers for then, or you can use it on the boss. Either way, don't save supers for final shape. I'm begging you, do not save supers for final shape. It's the most annoying thing you can do to your team when you save your supers. Use your super. There's plenty of enemies, plenty of opportunities, and especially considering the Minotaur laser laser beam heads, they will give you super energy when you're attacking enemies. So your supers are almost always going to be available. So just don't be afraid to use them. Keeping on the same theme as earlier, when you get inside of the Vex network, you're going to be met with a couple of unstoppable taken phalanxes that you're going to be able to shoot down upon. I recommend just kill them before you drop down, unless it's a situation where it's out of your line of sight and you are just impatient. Also, do not get hit by the taken blights. They will probably one-shot you if you're below 70 resilience, or if you get double hit by them. They do a lot of damage. That is the #1 wipe condition for most fire teams, is getting hit by those taken blights. So be in a position where you don't have to get hit by them, and you will be a-okay. If you do get hit by them, just don't make sure to get your entire team triple killed by them, and you'll probably be fine. Now, when you're clearing out all of these ads, there's no mechanic forcing you to push forward, so I say be as safe as you want to, unless you want to do the strike 3 times, and just take your time. It's really not the most difficult strike in the entire world, and there isn't much more advice that I can present to you to help you with this besides not being stupid, to be quite frank. Pulling up to this blight arena with the Minotaur heads, you're going to want to take the Minotaur heads once you kill the initial Minotaur and clear the blights as much as you can. The important thing to consider is that the taken Scions that spawn here, they will regenerate really, really, really quickly. If you leave one alive, there will be 8 to 10 of them waiting for you if you look away. They respawn very, very fast. Try not to rush through the blights when you haven't killed everything. Realistically, you could just kill most things before getting through them. Once you're done clearing out the Minotaurs and the blights, you can take a Minotaur head up the ramp to you. Kinda. It's kind of fickle in the way that it works. I found the most consistent way to get the Minotaur head not to despawn is to kind of climb all the way up first using these little ramps, as you can see, and then go up. The only thing is, I didn't touch my feet on the orb, and that seemed to work every single time when trying to hold onto a Minotaur head. Other times when I had a Minotaur head, it would just despawn. It feels fairly inconsistent. However, if you can take the Minotaur head up the ramp, you can shoot out the blights, and it just makes this chase section an absolute dream. If you can't take a Minotaur head, just get good. If you're not good at spare racing, you're not actually a true Destiny player, so just watch what I'm doing and replicate it. If you can't replicate it, I'm sure GameStop is selling Dora's Baby Adventure on sale for 50 cents for the Nintendo DS. You can go pick that up tomorrow, or today, if you want to. Today being preferably. Once you've gotten good and finished the spare racing section, same rules apply. The only difference is you're going to be dealing with a lot of overload hobgoblins. These guys are especially lethal because they have the homing seekers, plus they have the stasis grenades that they can throw at you, so just be careful. The only piece of advice I can offer at this point is to not split your fire team. At this point, you can pick to either go left or right of this column. There is going to be one overload hobgoblin, whichever way you go, so just team shot and focus all your attention on one of them before you jump up and before you jump on any of these platforms. Make sure you're destroying the mini blights. Those mini blight grenades, they will probably not one-shot you, but they will mess up your day if you don't take them too seriously. And always, don't save your supers for Lightfall. Myself, I was using Celestial Nighthawk Golden Gun, so being able to nuke every single one of these champions in one shot whenever I had it available, it was always helpful. And because I was using the Overload Rocket Launcher, I didn't have to wait for any special condition or effect to be able to kill the Overload taken hobgoblins, but this is the way that we handled this section. Moving on to my least favorite section of the strike, this little bit here where there's going to be a 360 arena full of taken blights that shoot at you constantly. Just know for this bridge section, once you clear the ads, you can just run into the arena and the blights blocking the bridge will despawn. You don't need to worry about killing those. They're going to despawn. All of the taken acolytes are going to have void shields, and there's going to be some guys in the middle that you have to kill alongside. Once you've killed half of the taken blights, there's going to be a handful of 3 specifically taken ogres that spawn in the middle. These guys can mess your day up. Just make sure that you're ready to nuke them as soon as they spawn. But apart from that, same principle applies. Don't be stupid. Make sure you're killing all of the champions before you progress. Otherwise, you won't be getting your platinum rewards. And just be sure to be careful, be diligent, and stand in a spot where you're not going to get hit by the taken blights. All right, final boss time. The strategy, keep it simple, stupid, still applies. Just note you can bring up a Minotaur head from the arena below, and the Minotaur head does a fantastic job at charging your super for you. So, in my case, Celestial Nighthawk Golden Gun Hunter, you can nuke the boss pretty quickly. 2 or 3 of those, or 2 of those, plus a weaken on the boss, and you're going to be able to phase him out immediately. But if you phase him out immediately, you're not going to have an opportunity to kill the champions. This spot that I'm standing in right now, in retrospect, I wouldn't recommend, because you have an incredibly hard time seeing the blights and the balls that are being shot at you, because the blights will come from either direction. He will never shoot blights through your cover, but the balls will go over and around your cover, so that is something to consider. And if you're like me and you're silly and your teammate dies to a blight, just know, do not save your supers for final shape. Use your supers as a survival tool, especially if it is a roaming super like Blade Fury, whatever it's called, Titan, the probably best subclass in the entire game right now for endgame PvE content. It's just something to look at, and don't get hit by the blights. 2 or 3 of those will kill you. Make sure you're killing champions, yada, yada, yada. I can yap on and on about this, but this is already getting to be a bit too long, so let me skip to the next section. Once you get the boss down to 33% health, there's going to be some platforms spawning. On these platforms are going to be some Vex. You can either A, leave the Vex to help you fight the Taken, or B, do what I did and kill them immediately. I'm not a big fan of leaving enemies that I need to kill around, so just make sure you're killing them immediately, because once you kill them, you get to pick up the Vex Minotaur's head and use it to destroy the blights around the arena. Now, once the blights are destroyed, the second phase of the boss is going to spawn, and the Minotaur heads hold over to the boss fight, so you can keep a little bit of ammo in it and use your super and then generate some more super. It's just a very simple feedback loop. No champions are going to spawn during this Vex portion of the strike, but they are going to spawn for the final Vex portion of the strike, and the Minotaur heads are really good at destroying the blights. During this part, Overload champions are going to spawn. There will be no unstoppable champions. You just might want to move around. Be careful of the snipers. Kill the hobgoblins as the first thing you do, because if you don't kill them, you're going to get sniped or you're going to get homing to death. It's just going to be an overall really bad time. Like I said, this is already getting to be too long, so I don't yap on and on. I'm going to cut to the next section. Once you get the boss down to 33% health and you've killed all of the Taken blights that spawn around the arena, it's just going to be as easy as killing the final champion that spawns and then killing the boss. Player Slants, it's good in the sense that anti-barrier rounds go through the shields. However, the explosive round doesn't penetrate the shield, so that's just something you got to be careful about, because you will have to reload eventually. Just make sure you're using everything, because at this point, once you've killed all the champions, nothing else spawns. You can stand as far back as you want to. It's probably better to stand in the very back of the arena where the boss originally is during phase 2. And besides that, this is a relatively easy Grandmaster Nightfall, all things considered. It's just a little bit time consuming because the boss has more health than even God knows how to deal with. So that's why this took my fire team 26 minutes, combined with some stupid deaths. And the adept weapon this week is, drumroll please, the Pre-Aristinka X Adept Solar Bow. Do not ask me to repronounce that, because I hate myself just for including that in this video. And besides that, Platinum Reward. This was the final GM of the season. If you didn't use your node and get them all done in 1 week, I, however, waited week on week on week just to make these videos, just to make these guides. So here it is. This is what we've all been doing this for. This is the Gilding of the Conqueror logo, and here we go. This was a very successful GM season. I want to thank each and every single one of you who watched these videos, used these videos for help, and shared it with your friends. And besides that, thank you all for watching. Have a great day, and I will be back with some new content relatively soon.